Welcome to this masterclass presentation. My name is Jon Davids, CEO of Influicity, and I got a good one for you guys today. We're going to be talking about how communities are transforming brand building, and my Lord, are they ever transforming brand building. I'm going to share examples with you about how people are building brands worth literally hundreds of millions of dollars on their communities. And all these tools and tactics that I'm going to share with you, they are available to SMBs, global brands, venture-backed startups, solopreneurs, high-growth companies of all kinds. These tools and tactics are available. I'm going to share them all with you right now. Presentation runs just under 20 minutes. I promise you, I am bringing the fire. Let's get to it right now. Let's talk about how communities are transforming brand building. So before we get into the presentation, I want to just make a point. The biggest businesses today are coming from very unlikely places. And if you're watching this right now, I bet you could name at least one or two of the people on this screen. And if you can't, I'll just tell you right now, over there on the left, we have Kim Kardashian, founder of Skims. In the middle, we've got Mr. Beast, who's behind Feastables and a lot of other products. And on the right, we've got Rihanna behind Fenty Beauty. And of course, these people are all celebrities and influencers who have products. Now, it's probably a little less obvious on this page because these are also influencers with big communities. And I bet you probably can't tell me who either of these people are. On the left, we have Nick Huber, a guy behind a company called Bolt Storage. It's a $100 million plus real estate company focusing on storage. And on the right, we have a guy named Car Dealership Guy. Literally, this is the only name and the only photo we know him by. And he's got a multi-million-dollar car brokerage business that he built on Twitter. Both of these people built their businesses with the communities they have assembled on Twitter. So this is not just for the celebrities of the world. People think, oh, well, if you're a mega celebrity, of course you've got a community. Of course you could launch a big business. It's not just for celebrities. Community exists, yes, for celebrities, yes, for influencers, yes, for creators, but this is possible for every brand to do, and I'm going to talk to you about how to do that right now. Before this presentation ends, we're going to cover why community is every brand's secret weapon right now, how to actually build a community, the tools and the tactics to make it happen, and some amazing, and I mean amazing, real-world examples. Stay tuned for those at the end of this presentation. Before we get any further, let me take 1 minute to tell you about Influicity. At Influicity, we build brand communities that drive revenue. We do this through podcasts, influencers, social, and a whole bunch more. Some examples: we helped a big bank drive millions in new revenue. We helped an apparel brand create hundreds of thousands of dollars in new revenue via TikTok. We helped a crypto brokerage capture hundreds of high net worth accounts. These are some of the clients we work with. We make incredible podcasts. Our podcasts go to the top of the charts. You can see here's a growth trajectory of one. When we take over an Instagram or a TikTok account, it tends to do really well. I think I did that in under 1 minute. Let's move on to the presentation. So first off, what is a community? The definition we're going to use is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. Communities tend to be linked to lifestyles and outcomes. They offer a sense of belonging. You want to join them. They have leaders and sometimes villains or foes. They tend to contain routines and rituals, and these last two are really important. They grow on their own. They grow on their own. They self-propel. And finally, they tend to self-organize. And we're going to come back to some of these themes as we go through the presentation. So when we think about a brand, we think about, do they know you? Do they like you? And do they trust you? That's what you need to get an audience or a customer base to do in order to build your brand. With a community, it's similar, but there are some differences. So we start with the knowing you part, but then they have to feel like they relate to you. And finally, they have to want to join you. So with a community, you have more of a deep you're more deeply embedded with that customer than you are if they just know you as a brand. So how do you build a community in 2023? Well, the good news is there are so many tools to use to make it happen today. I'll run through them right now clockwise. So you've got influencers across YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all over the place. You've got podcasts, which are incredible at building very, very intimate communities. Hard to build, but once you've done it, incredibly sticky. LinkedIn, which is phenomenal for B2B. Discord, look at what happened with Discord over the pandemic. With crypto and NFTs, Discord became the hub of where those communities were built. Blogs, of course, have been around for decades. Instagram, phenomenal in apparel and any visual category. Email is having a huge resurgence right now. You can build a phenomenal community via email. Many e-commerce brands are doing just that. YouTube, especially with YouTube Shorts. SMS, probably the least cluttered spot to reach people on their phones. Events, of course, if you can do IRL events or virtual events, those are great. Twitter is having a resurgence as well in certain categories. TikTok is blowing up all over the place. So there's so many ways to build communities right now, and you don't have to do all of them. You can just take a few that work for you and do tremendous things. What you have to understand at the very, very beginning is that you must have a central content engine. It's so important to have one engine in order to create endless content. So what does a content engine looks like? Well, for one thing, it has to have a consistent output. You need to be creating content with a cadence that is predictable, that is manageable for you, and that is repeatable such that you're going to continue doing it. You need to have a unified voice. So you have to think about one theme or one element or one angle, one personality that you're going to come from. You can create lots of different pieces of content, but it has to be cohesive in some way. You need to think about your content in a way that can be served in bits and bytes. So people aren't going to necessarily tune in for 30 minutes or for 20 minutes or for 10 minutes. What if you only have someone's attention for 13 seconds? Can you take that big piece of content you've created and chop it up in that sort of way? Some great content engines, you can think of them like blogs, video series, webinars, podcasts. These make great content engines. With the right strategy, one piece of marketing can do the work of 14 pieces. One thing we talk about at Influicity is the content cascade. So this is a framework we use. You can go ahead and do a screenshot right now or just let us know. We'll send you a nice clean PDF. If you think about the content cascade, the source content coming from the top, podcast, influencer, and social are the examples we give in this framework. And then they distill down to audio platforms, brand website, brand socials, paid media. In green, we have host socials and guest socials in the case of a podcast. And then in light blue, we have video content, transcripts. Each of those buckets have lots of different distribution outlets. And then, of course, you can create long form, short form, audio, video, visual, etc. So the content cascade is just a quick snapshot to show you how we think about and how we execute a content strategy, which is imperative to building a community. Now, how do you take each piece of content further? This is something that a lot of brands struggle with because they think I'm going to create one piece of content and that is what it's going to be for eternity. Well, not quite, because you can create one piece of content and then create lots of different ways for it to be distilled through stories, through observations, through threads, through contrarian takes, through a past versus present take, through a top 5. Let's pretend you created a piece of content that was called a podcast, let's say, that's a beginner's guide to investing in the stock market. And as you can see on this slide, we've created different pieces based on that one piece of information. So you got a 30-minute audio recording and maybe a video recording as well. Maybe you create a story out of that, how Susan Jones made $240,000 on one stock pick. An observation. Do you ever wonder how people win big picking stocks? A thread. The best stock pickers understand one thing. Let's dig in. A contrarian take. Stock picking is not the best way to make money. Maybe you tell them how. Past versus present. The stock market is not what it used to be. Here's how to win in 2022 or 2023 or 2024. Top 5 ways to win big in the stock market. As you can see, one piece of content can be used in lots of different ways. Finally, you need to stand out while fitting in. People over the age of 20 logging into TikTok be like this guy, Adam Sandler. Okay? you can't stand out like a sore thumb if you're going to be native to a platform. So how do you do that? Well, if you want to be native to a platform, you've got to make custom thumbnails, for example, on YouTube. So you create a video that's meant for LinkedIn. You can put it on YouTube, but make a thumbnail that will pop on YouTube. You need to speak in the language of Twitter. A lot of people take their blog posts from their website, put them on Twitter as threads. You've got to punch it up. You've got to be able to stand out on Twitter, be native to the platform. You got to have personality on TikTok. A lot of people are too bland. They don't want to be edgy enough. You got to be able to capture attention on TikTok really quickly. So you got to have personality. You got to use the aesthetic of Instagram. You want to make a thumb-stopping piece of content that people, as people are scrolling that feed, you have to use the aesthetic of Instagram. All right, let's do a quick recap. We've talked about building a central content engine, taking each piece of content further, and finally, making your content native to the platform. Let's look at some amazing real-world examples right now. So this guy made $26 million in 2 weeks through his community, and I bet you he's going to make a whole lot more money. Let me tell you how he did it. So his name's Craig Fuller, and in 2020, he bought a magazine called Flying Magazine. You see it there on the screen. It's a magazine for pilots and aviation enthusiasts. And at the time when he bought it, he said his intention was to keep the magazine going and build lifestyle businesses for the aviation crowd. Fast forward 2 years, Craig bought 1,500 acres of land just outside Chattanooga, Tennessee. And his plan was to build an aviation community. Think about it sort of like a golf community, but instead of having fairways and a clubhouse, you have runways and airplane hangars. So now he had a bunch of land. Here's what he did next. Craig ran an ad in Flying Magazine, thinking that maybe he would sell 3 to 5 plots of land in the first few months. Here's what happened next. He sold $26 million worth of real estate in just a couple weeks because airplane enthusiasts, his community, really wanted to live with other airplane enthusiasts. And so he was able to get a phenomenal ROI on his community. He bought the magazine. So he didn't even build the community, he bought it. Phenomenal ROI. All right, so what did Craig do right? Well, number one, he has a trusted source of content. Aviation enthusiasts swear by this magazine. They've been reading it for decades. They trust it. He has a passionate community built in, a very niche community, and one that is able to spend a lot of money because they're airplane enthusiasts. So you can sell them airplanes, you can sell them gear, and apparently you can sell them real estate. And finally, he delivered it in a vehicle that makes sense for this group. A lot of people might say, well, magazines are dying. Yeah, but when you're up in an airplane, 10, 20, 30,000 feet in the air, you don't have Wi-Fi necessarily. What are you going to do? You're going to read a magazine. So it makes perfect sense for this community. Let's look at another awesome real-world example. Majuri built a $51 million a year business through community. And we're going to share some key insights as well. So we're talking about this founder over here, Noura Sakija, founder of Majuri. And here's how she did it. Let's go back to 2013. Noura's family had been in the jewelry business for generations. She wanted to continue the jewelry business, but one thing was bugging her, and that is, why is jewelry only purchased by men for women? Why aren't women buying it themselves? And she summed it up in a few words: buy yourself the damn diamond. And that was the rallying cry of Majuri, and soon a lot of women were about to hear this rallying cry. So fast forward here, Noura launches Majuri. She starts the company by crowdsourcing goods, and then she rolls out in 2014 a D2C line geared towards the jewelry market. Now, what's interesting about this business is that jewelry is a $200 billion market, and 80% of that is mom and pop shops selling generic jewelry. So it's very fragmented. Only 20% of jewelry is branded. Think Tiffany's. And so in the case of Majuri, they decided, why don't we create a branded D2C line and let's market it through community. So this is back in 2015. And what did she do? She created influencer partnerships. She went hard on social media. She went hard on email marketing. Again, all this stuff might sound obvious today, but this was 2015. She also created a lot of FOMO. She added weekly drops, limited quantities, wait lists, and really opportunities for people to really feel like they wanted to be a part of the community. So this playbook is really, really interesting. So we start off with a key insight within the audience base. Buy yourself the damn diamond. That's a very different position. So that gives you a positioning with which to start building the community. She focused on things like sustainability, diversity, inclusion, responsible sourcing, and really tried to tie it back to how people felt about jewelry today. And finally, again, influencer, social, email, back in 2015, and all these great FOMO tactics like weekly drops, limited quantities, wait lists. I got to tell you, I have a lot of friends who are fans of Mejuri. These people are fanatic. You see lineups out the door. It's not just a jewelry brand, it's a movement. And it's a classic example in the power of community. Remember those wait lists I told you about? Some of them are 100,000 names long. That is powerful. Let's do one more here. I love this one. Aloe built a $240 million a year business by ignoring celebrities and focusing on their community. This is a super interesting one. So let's go back to 2007 when this brand started. Danny Harris and Marco DeGeorge, they are the founders of the company. They epitomize the brand ethos, practicing yoga daily, eating organic, and loving the outdoors. They call their brand Aloe, an acronym for Air, Land, Ocean, and they start to build a cult following. They embrace their tribe from day one. They have 4,000 yoga pros that they recruit, and they partner with them to create content across social. If you look at their Instagram feed, it is oozing with SoCal yoga vibes. Sun-soaked beaches, poolside palm trees, plenty of in-studio shots, all the poses, handstand scorpion, lotus legs, Bhavasana. My yoga friends are going to make fun of me because I don't know how to say that word, but they got all the poses, and there are 0 famous faces on their feeds. And this is interesting. This is really interesting because they have a lot of famous faces that wear their brand. A lot of celebrities, I'll show you in a minute, wear the brand. So why did they focus on the yoga community and not all these celebrities who are constantly caught in the paparazzi's lenses wearing their product? Well, it's very simple. Had they gone up against the juggernaut, the Lululemon, and just said, we're yoga for everybody, it wouldn't have worked. So they focused on their core community. And if you look at their feeds here, they've actually created a number of feeds. They have Aloe, Aloe Yoga, Aloe Moves, Aloe Wellness. They've even done celebrity lines, but they won't promote those celebrity lines on their main channel unless there is a real yoga pull to it. So they'll push that off to their lifestyle channel. So the whole point here is if you want to build a yoga brand that really, really appeals to yogis, you can't go broad and try to take on Lululemon. You've got to go narrow. And in this case, they've managed to build a $250 million revenue brand by being very narrow and focusing on their community. 4,000 yoga pros, non-diluted brand for Aloe Yoga before branching out, built for yogis by yogis, make it about yoga, not influencers, and then expand the brand outwards through new micro communities once you've already established yourself where you are. Now is the time to build brand communities. Companies used to compete on 30-second spots. Now they compete with TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. They are all over the place. Companies used to guard their brands like the crown jewels. Now your brand needs to survive in the wild. It must survive in the wild. Companies used to buy influence from others, and they still can, but now they can make their own influence using all the tactics I've just talked about. Hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. Thank you for your time. You can learn more about Influicity at influicity.com. Of course, follow us across social. I'm Jon Davids. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next time.